All right. Hey, everybody. Excited to be here with Johnny Hanna today. Really grateful for his willingness to jump on. He's got a ton of experience and he's done some amazing things. I really admire Johnny and his authenticity. So excited to just have some, as he calls it, sensitive topics to discuss. So anyways, yeah, welcome, Johnny.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining. For those that maybe don't know you, would love maybe to hear your elevator summary of who you are as a person. I guess that's a lot to ask, but would just maybe love that to start.
My elevator pitch of who I am as a person. Yeah, I got a big family. I think that's what I'm known for in a lot of circles. I have 8 kids, 7 boys, 1 girl. I live a little bit in the country, so we have 4 dogs, 25 chickens, 22 chickens. Excuse me. We had 25 chickens.
Did a coyote get to him, or what
Yeah,
happened?
a mix of things and neighbors' dogs, but
Gotcha.
I grew up in Colorado, Montana, the Rocky Mountain area, and lived in Idaho for school, BYU, Idaho, and then now lived here in Utah since 2003. Started a company called Entrada, was there for 12 years. Started Homey, was there for, well, still am at Homey technically, but yeah, I am now full-time at a company called Funnel, and I've been here a year and a half. So that's a super quick summary of work and family.
That's awesome. Well, if you don't mind, I'd love to jump right into your journey at Entrada. Like, my hope on this podcast is always just to help people see the journey that people go on, and I think what happens internally, not necessarily externally. At least for me, I talk a lot about, from when I first started my first company to today, I feel like I'm a totally different person internally. And anyways, so I want to understand, you started Entrada, you were in college at the time, correct? Can you tell me, like, how did that journey to start Entrada? And for those that don't know, Entrada is a billion-dollar tech company. I mean, Johnny is a big deal, not just, it's a big deal. So we'd love to just hear how that started. When you started the company, what was your intention, your motive? Like, I just want to hear that.
Yeah, we started during our senior year. So it was
Okay.
Ben Zimmer, Mike Trianfo, Dave Bateman, and I, and a few others actually. There was a good group, but it was personally for me, it was my senior project. So I was tasked to call hundreds of apartment communities to find out if they collected rent online, if they had marketing websites, and then just document all the other software tools that they had. So I got a group of students together and we just did a little research project and put a little business plan together, a mini business plan for me at BYU Idaho to get my degree. That was my final, again, senior year project. But my other partners were at BYU entering the BYU business plan competition using a lot of our research and, of course, writing the rest of it. But yeah, the goal was to build out an enterprise one-stop shop software tool for property managers that managed huge apartment communities. And there were 2 behemoths, Yardi and RealPage at the time. They were both, I think, on DOS software, and they were moving to Windows. And we were like, we could do all this on web-based software and we can get ahead of them. So that was the business plan. We won the BYU business plan. We won all sorts of other competitions around the US. That was our funding. We won the national business plan competition that was sponsored by Fortune magazine. And they put us on the cover of Fortune Small Business magazine, which was amazing. We thought we'd made it. We thought we were celebrities. It was a really fun start to the business world and jumping into property management, which really none of us knew a whole lot about. So that's kind of how it began.
When you started it, would you say, I'm just curious, were you trying to do it because it was just fun to do business? Did you have a financial goal? Did you have some outcome that you hoped for? Or maybe you weren't even thought out? Just curious.
Yeah, I'd say my partners had all of that. Like, I think I was
Okay.
a little bit more mindless and I didn't have direction. I'm just like, hey, I didn't have any other offers. I didn't know what I wanted to do still after getting my business degree. I mean, I went into business because it was broad enough, because I couldn't narrow down like what I wanted. I'm like, yeah, business covers a lot. But I was pretty charismatic. I'd run for student body president. I think the sales piece is what, my partners saw in me, customer service. They're like, Johnny could come in and run that part of the company as a co-founder. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't married at BYU Idaho, and normally everybody's married by the time they graduate in that environment, that culture. So the next step for me was to move to Provo, Utah. So all like that was part of the decision as well. I'm like, hey, I'll go do this startup. You know, we won the BYU business plan. Like some things are cool. Like, so it just, it felt right. And I was excited to move down to Provo.
That's really cool. And how soon after you started the business did you end up getting married?
About 3 years in. So
Okay, so there was a chunk of time you weren't married.
yeah. And I think that was, you know, it's so much easier to start a business when you don't have a lot of responsibilities. And I think
I
maybe as
agree.
aimless as I was too, you know, I don't know if I could have ever even afforded to have a wife and kids, or I don't know what that would have looked like. But yeah, 3 years later, I don't know, I was probably making about $50,000-$60,000 3 years later after starting Entrada. So still not a ton of money, but I was
Yeah.
single. I was living in my student housing apartment, but I rented out the apartment and I lived in the closet because I really wasn't making a ton of money. So I was packing it away, saving it to buy my own little townhome. And then I did. I bought a townhome, and it was right at that time I met my wife. And I thought I was going to have roommates and make money off that, have a little supplemental income. But the better thing happened, and yeah, found a wife.
Permanent ruminate.
Yeah, and she wasn't too impressed the fact that I was living in a closet. But I told her, I'm like, hey, I'm saving up. I'll buy my own place. So um yeah, that was so I know she's a keeper. She married me when I was living in a closet.
Married you when you did you feel like you changed after you got married? Did things start to change, or did you work just as hard, or just yeah, how'd that go?
Yeah, I don't remember any shift or change really occurring. I mean,
Yeah,
I had, you know, we were all workaholics, and so I
yeah,
know I did what was needed for the company, and probably then some. I think I'd say I'd come home, but I didn't necessarily disconnect. You know, I'd be
yeah,
home, but
yeah.
I'd still be working to a degree. So a lot of learning lessons, you know, early on. But yeah, I mean, it felt like straight work for the first many years of marriage.
Have you ever do you disconnect now? Are you able to? Yeah, I still struggle with that, if I'm honest.
Yeah, we all struggle. I mean, it's some days I do better than others. You know, I set goals. I have a new goal. I just deleted like every app on my phone this morning. Actually, I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't. Today's the 20th. I'm like, I'm gonna go to the new year without any social media, without any news. I don't even want to know what's going on in the news. I'm not checking Bitcoin. I'm not like nothing. I just don't have anything on my phone for 11 days. So yeah, I mean, it's been a constant struggle to be present
Yeah.
at, and I'm working from home. So I mean, you'll see kids, you know, running in and out of here, but it's I'm definitely better than I was. No question there.
There's this neuroscientist that I went and listened to him talk, and he told everybody to put their phones on grayscale. Have you ever tried that? So you look up ChatGPT, how to turn your iPhone to grayscale. They don't make it easy, but apparently the color like stimulates your brain in such a way that it creates more addiction with the color. And so when it's just gray, and I've had it for about 2 months now. I've literally noticed like there's a different emotional reaction when I pick up my phone when it's gray versus when it's in color.
Well, to me, if anyone listening to this, that's probably the best tip they're going to get out of all of it. Because I'm going to do that.
But
I'm going to go in and grayscale
no,
because it does. It feels like an assault of color, and you know, I mean, and
it feels
everyone's
good. Yeah, your brain's like, yeah, no, it was cool. Yeah, it's been good. So I have some questions about you were at Entrada for a long time. Eventually, you stepped away. The business was thriving. You grew the business. How long were you actively involved in the business?
11.
So 11 years. I mean, you've given your heart, your soul, your identity. My guess is your identity was heavily engaged with Entrada. What was that decision like to step away? Why would you do that when the business was so successful and things were going, presumably well?
Hardest decision I ever made and the best decision I ever made. Yeah, we were approaching $100 million in recurring revenue, so we had a run rate of 100 million. We hadn't hit the 100 mark quite yet, but yeah. And I mean, I was in charge of sales. I was closing deals. I was meeting our clients. I loved our clients. This industry, it's a small industry. I'm back there now actually with Funnel. We have a tool that kind of sits sits on top of Entrada and a few of the other big platforms like Entrada. But yeah, it's a great industry. It's a multifamily industry. If people lose their homes, they have to move into apartments. You know, it's like a stable place as the economies go up and down. But yeah, just a wonderful place. People are here forever. And so, yeah, I didn't want to leave. And I was president of Entrada, had several divisions reporting to me. Again, the company was thriving, but my partner and I just had completely different views of how the company should be run. Financially, it was going in the right direction. It was a rocket ship, and it was steady. Like my departure, I knew wouldn't really change things with financially where it's going, and it didn't. Like things just continued to progress. I don't know. I mean, maybe if I was there, it would have grown faster, you know, and bigger. Of course, that's what I'd like to think, you know, but it didn't appear to change when I left.
Yeah.
But yeah, we just the way we managed people and culture. Like culture is everything to me. And at a point I felt like I was chief hypocrite officer, and it just was eating. And that's where it's like no amount of money, no amount of success, financial success, like is worth it. And so, but yeah, you said identity was totally tied into it. And I thought it wasn't, you know, I'd read all these books. I'm like, no, you know, I preached that at a few different conferences or, you know, classes to other students at universities, but my identity was totally tied to it. I was insecure, had no idea what I was capable of when I left. All my wealth was on paper at Entrada. So I've never been a big guy of putting together a savings account. You know, I just spend what and my wife, I would say, has helped me to do that. But yeah, so yeah, I didn't have a lot of money, didn't know what I was going to do next. It was scary. It was a really scary decision, but it was 1,000,000% the right decision. And I'm so, you know, I did agree to stay on like as a consultant for a year. So technically I was at Entrada for 12 years, but I didn't want to hurt the company or hurt the employees or hurt any views of the business, because it was good and the people were good. Like there was so much good with the company, but just, my co-founder and I just saw things different. And so I stayed on as a consultant kind of in name only for a year while I looked around to figure out what was next.
So you said you felt like you were the chief hypocrite officer. It sounds like you felt like you guys were doing things at the top that weren't fully being communicated at the bottom, or however. Can you explain to me maybe what made you feel that way? You don't have to get specifics, but just would love to understand that.
Yeah, I mean, I can share a good example, and I think if you were to have my, you know, old partner on the call, or he watches this, I think he'd probably agree. But I mean, he prided himself on doing all-nighters. He spoke at many conferences and said, like, in the last 10 years, I've done 2,000 all-nighters, you know, and he genuinely did, like, and I was a beneficiary of that, right? Like he coded, and he was a great coder. So he just programmed all night. I mean, at least I wasn't there to see that he was coding all night, but it sure seemed like he was coding all night. But yeah, like it was almost every other night he would pull an all-nighter and just go, and he would say, like, I'm going to outwork every single competitor I have. And I imagine he did. But at the same time, I was trying to tell my teams, balance, take vacations, you know, don't get burnt out, you know, and I think, you know, as a founder, you have equity, you know, as an employee, like working more hours gets you more money, you know, but so people were being rewarded and recognized for being workaholics. And that was I mean, I wanted people to work hard. And of course, I feel like working hard is seasonal, like not working hard, but like all-nighters are seasonal. Like there's times where you have to, there's deadlines that if you're behind, you got to meet them. So I'm not opposed to hustling, you know, when you need to, but that's an example. Like, I think if you're to start a business or go into business with somebody, like you ask, like, you know, what does work-life balance mean to you? And there's really no such thing as work-life balance, again, because it's so seasonal, but still that conversation is needed. And I was having those conversations with my partner, and we just did not agree. We didn't. And so that's one of a myriad of things that that's not the type of company that I want to lead. And I was co-founder, president. And so that's where people were looking at me like, you say one thing, but then you do another. and it
Yeah.
just ate at me. I mean, I've thought a lot about why I left, because I left a lot of money on the table, but again, it was the right call, and life has worked out.
Do you think it's possible to build, we'll just call it $1 billion tech company without somebody like your co-founder that's just maniacal and extreme and, kind of that sort of personality?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's a formula for anything. I mean, and part of my arguments were, hey, you can delegate. We're making a
Yeah.
lot of money right now. Like, hire other people and get all that work done during the day. Like,
Yeah.
you as an individual have to do that. And even starting Homey, that was my thing. And
Yeah.
we were well on our way at Homey. Like, at our peak, we were heading toward a multi-billion-dollar valuation. Like, we were going that
Wow.
direction. And I made sure one of our core values that we had to check ourselves against was balance. And it was,
Mm.
it was right there for us to look at on the wall. We rewarded people based on our values. So when we had company meetings, like, who is the winner of this value? Who's the annual winner that's lived this value? But I wasn't perfect there, and made a ton of mistakes there also. And there was divisions of our company, like, realtors have the hardest job on earth. They're on call nonstop, and our realtors, they could never live the value of balance. And so I was kind of a chief hypocrite officer again in that sense,
Yeah.
So, but I acknowledged it, and we were actively making strides to make our realtor
Perfect.
life easier, and I think we did, but it's still, yeah, like, the values we put forth were more aspirational. Like, we would love to achieve that, but it's like not achievable. But you just continually work, continually put an effort. So
So it sounds like one of your core values is that authenticity. And anytime that you're not being authentic, you're just not feeling good in a situation. Would you agree?
yeah, I don't know how anyone can sleep at night without authenticity. There's something bugging you. There's something,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's people that feel, might have feelings against me or toward me, and they're like, that guy's not authentic. How does he sleep at night? And there's judgment that can occur,
Yeah.
but I think, you got to have open, honest conversations. Like, here's my perception. This is why I'm doing what I'm doing, and why I did what I did. And so, yeah, I mean, I think you have to have an open mind going in. And again, my judgment of other people, of like, why can't you sleep at night? Like, I've had conversations with people, and hearing from them, I'm like, that makes sense. I get it.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's a interesting point because the more people I meet and the more inquisitive I am, the more it's like, I think most people feel like they're doing the right thing, you know?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you see it from their perspective, I don't think many people are like, I'm going to go and do the wrong thing today, right? They're like, no, I'm going to do what I believe is right with the lens that I'm looking at life. And so to your point, maybe those people that are inauthentic think they're doing the right thing, you know?
I mean, I'm of that belief. I think they for sure do. I mean, I don't think my partner was out there saying, hey, I've pulled 2,000 all-nighters in the last little bit, because he was like, I'm embarrassed by it, or like,
Yeah.
he's like, this
Yeah.
is the right thing. Like, I'm
This is the
going to
right
do
way.
this, and then I'll be able to give all this money away and do all these things for all these people and serve. Like, there's good motives, I think, behind some of those things. And I recall when he said that, like, the audience gave him a huge applause.
Of
Everybody
course.
was
Yeah.
like in awe, and they were like,
Yeah.
whoa, like, you're amazing. Like, and again, like, encouraging that behavior.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, everybody has a different perspective.
So then at this point, how do you reinforce balance? Are you a structured person? Are you super fluid? Like, how do you reinforce balance in your life?
I think you have to be fluid, but yeah, there's rules. Like, I want to be home at 5 p.m. for dinner every night. And if there's things that I need to do after, I just let my wife know, like, hey, I have a couple extra things I need to still finish, or I'm going on a business trip. I'm going to be gone for multiple days, and
Yeah.
I'm not a big fan of traveling away from the family, but I have to do that. I have to.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
the best thing for my company. But I don't know. I just think that if you're present with your kids if you're actually present with your family when you have that family time. To me, that's what matters most. It's not the time. Like, there's been plenty
The
of, like,
quantity.
early days at Entrada, I was home, but I was never present.
Yeah.
And so I think that's the key. If your kids know that you love them and your wife knows you love her, and you're present with them when you can, like, it means everything.
Do you recently Entrada raised some money? You got some money out of Entrada, correct? Not too long ago. Did you feel like it was worth the 10 years? Like when that happened, was there like this amazing, like, wow, I'm so glad I did this? Or I just curious, tell me your emotions when you experienced.
Yeah, I actually, when I left Entrada, I wasn't able to sell my shares up until just a couple years ago. So, I mean, I was, yeah, again, on paper, I had money, but financially I was struggling. I was living paycheck
Yeah.
to paycheck as any other startup founder. So I actually never thought I would see money from Entrada. I didn't know if it would just forever stay a private company and just, I felt blocked in being able to sell my equity. But through that time, there was a lot of resentment. There was a lot of frustration, a lot of anger, because I had put in so much work and I knew it had enormous value, and just wasn't able to get it. But I came to a point finally, like, just after a lot of reconciliation and prayer and meditation and therapy, that it was worth it if I never made a penny. All of the lessons I learned made me a better husband, a better father, a better entrepreneur. It made me better at homie. Like, yeah, like, no amount of money could make up for that experience. And it was amazing. And we did great things. And so, like, that was a reward. And then I was finally able to exit, not with an ideal exit, but again, I didn't expect to get anything. And so,
So you were pumped.
yeah, but I'm super grateful for everything that's transpired and how it's all worked out.
It's awesome. That's awesome. So by the time the money came, it wasn't really about money and you weren't really expecting it. So you'd already come to terms with your experience there and your learnings and the value of it. So it was just kind of a nice to have sort of thing.
Yeah, and a great nice to have. I mean, as soon as I
Yeah.
did, a house with a basketball court, and so I did. I went and got a
Yeah.
house with a basketball court, and I'm like, sweet, this
Yeah.
is amazing. Yeah, and of course,
Yeah. Yeah.
it's a great thing. Yeah, I don't want to downplay that, but no, it's what we all shoot for. Financially, we want, like I said, we like to spend money, we like to buy things, and
Yeah.
so,
I like that. So then after you left Entrada, which I think to your point is in a lot of ways it has to be a testament to the core value of authenticity, to leave so much money, to leave so much growth, leave so much identity, and not just like leave it for another opportunity, but it sounds like you just left and you're like, I'm not sure what I'm gonna do, but I know I need to leave. Is that accurate?
yeah, and I think that was the harder thing because I didn't have an income and my bank account wasn't that big, and I'm like, I don't think we have much time to live on this. So, yeah, I mean, I made the decision abruptly, and it was a very, again, I knew it. I knew that was the right decision. And then, yeah, on my final day, my partners threw me a going away party, and I yeah, just had no clue. No clue. And again, all that insecurity came flooding in. Like, this is all I knew from college. And,
Yeah.
I had networked. I really was heads down, just networking in the multifamily space. So I maybe could have looked at
Yeah.
doing something else in multifamily, but I felt like I needed to get away there too and just be completely separate. And so, yeah, I mean, I took probably 3 or 4 months just having breakfasts and lunches with every entrepreneur that would give me the time of day, and VCs. I would call up VCs and I'm like, hey, in your portfolio, like, who would you work for? Like, is there a company that's thriving? And is anyone hiring? Would you even see me as a fit at any of those companies? Not trying to be presumptive, but and I got introductions all over the place, and I didn't take a break. I didn't stop working necessarily. My last day in Entrada turned into my first day of, like, trying to find out what's next.
Trying to find a job.
Yeah.
And you went at Homie and Homie was I used Homey like I think 4 times, 5 times. It's a great platform for buying and selling real estate. Kind of reduces the fees, the cost of the buyer and seller. It was, I mean, presumably a huge success at one point, right? Like it was just growing like crazy. At that point, did you ever? I don't know what happened. You and I haven't caught up much on kind of the recent story of Homey, but how did that trend? Like, how did it go up and then down, or what was that trend like, and how was that experience for you as the CEO and co-founder?
Yeah, it was a rocket ship like from the beginning. I mean, we raised a ton of money, got a ton of publicity. I think my success at Entrada also helped us. So, I mean, once I
Yeah,
decided to start a new company and start Homey, like everything just seemed to go in our way. That said, I mean, we were fighting the National Association of Realtors, and they're the largest
yeah,
trade organization in America. There's something like 5 million
yeah.
realtors, I think, were there when we started, and it's
Wow.
they've had their same 6% commissions for decades. And I had read Freakonomics, and Freakonomics had a whole chapter about kind of the injustice on realtor fees and homes and the value of what you can sell it for. Like, there's just so much that there was to unpack. And I mentioned I bought my first townhome, right when I was getting married, and even then the experience was horrible. But I used friends that I loved and still love, but just experience was broken. And the fees didn't make any sense. But
Yeah,
yeah, we grew it. We became the largest brokerage in Utah, but we had to raise a ton of money just to fight our industry here in Utah. So we raised a ton of money. We had billboards all over the place. We were advertising at jazz games, U of U, BYU, like every university, sponsoring like youth leagues. Like we had our name out there because we were a business to consumer setup. And yeah, it was going really well. But when interest rates increased, funding ceased, and we needed that funding to fight the industry.
keep growing.
Yeah. So about a year ago, there was a huge lawsuit against the National Association of Realtors in the state of Missouri. And they were found guilty. Realtors were found guilty of steering agents to homes that paid higher commissions. So if you were doing for sale by owner, why would they go to your for sale by owner where you're not going to pay them commission, where they could go to a Remax home or a Keller Williams home
Yeah,
that automatically said, hey, any agent out there, we're going to pay you 3% if you bring your buyer to me.
yeah,
So
yeah,
it was
yeah,
a
yeah.
fixed fee, and you could steer your buyers to any home that would pay you a lot of money. And so that they were found guilty, huge lawsuit, had to pay a ton of money, had to change some rules that are amazing, I think, for consumers. I think everybody's still trying to figure out exactly what's best, but the fact that it's much harder to have a fixed commission. Like it was always negotiable, kind of,
Yeah,
as
yeah, yeah.
had been preached. But you said you used Homey selling your home. Like, if you did not pay 3% buyer agent commission, you wouldn't get agents showing up. If you paid
Yeah,
2%, you'd get a few. If you paid
yeah.
1%, you'd get less. If you paid like a flat fee, people
Nobody would
would
do it.
skip your home and go everywhere else. And so we
Yeah,
experienced that. And without the funding to advertise our platform and bring and more buyers to our plate, to our clients' homes than normal, it was a death sentence. And
yeah,
so I didn't raise my Series C or my Series B, and we ended up having to do layoffs, and it was just really hard. So, we still have a killer team over there. They still do all the things that you experienced with them today, but it's just a much smaller team. We're not doing the same amount of advertising. We've just had to figure out like how to get to profitability, just stay here in Utah. We had expanded to 5 states, so we were burning a lot of money educating those markets and fighting the industry in those markets too. And it was just, yeah, you either raise a crazy ton of money or you sue the industry and win a lawsuit. That was the only way.
that
And
was your
so, yeah, so and Homey's currently in a lawsuit that's identical to the one that just occurred in Missouri. But the one in Missouri was a class action lawsuits for consumers. Consumers sued the industry for agents not showing their homes. Our lawsuit's identical. It's just we're the business side of it. So it's an
yeah.
antitrust lawsuit where agents skipped Homey homes.
Got it, got it, got it. So you're still involved with the business?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I did so many layoffs. Again, it's hard to sleep at night knowing you're getting paid and the majority of your
Somebody else isn't.
people that were friends, that were close, that were warriors with you in this industry that you now let go. So I fired myself, just volunteered to work for free for the last few years. And that's where it's been.
No, you're good guy. I'm curious because, and wrapping up here in the next few minutes, but throughout your journey, do you feel like you've ever created a clear definition of what success looks like for you in your life, or are you still trying to define that? I'm just, you've been through so much. You've had what others would consider maybe a dream career. Just wondering, how you feel about that.
Yeah, let me pause it here again real quick.
All good.
Hey, bud, remember I'm on a call? You see this? I can't have you down here. You have to stay upstairs, okay? Yeah. Okay. Thanks, brother. Okay, you want me just to jump in answering that question?
Yeah, jump in.
I think that's, the answer to that has continually been evolving, but I mean, my kids, my family, right? Like that's success. If I have a good relationship with them, that's happy. Everything. You have it. You have success. And regardless of the money you make or don't make, like,
even if you didn't have a basketball court, like if you had to lose your basketball court at this point, do you feel like,
I don't know about that. I don't, that one's really tough. No, but yeah, I mean, I felt like I had success before, I was able to sell anything. And I think that was the process that I had to go through. And it was a learning curve. And still, I'm still learning. I'm still trying to figure out, because there's just things inside that I've defined as success. And I'm still trying to, just overcome habits or thoughts that I've had that have been ingrained in me. I mean, my dad, my dad had insecurities of not going to college. And so instead of, like he would say, like, I didn't have to go to college and look at what I've built, and almost like demeaned college, or his hands were super rough. He did construction and he would shake hands with people and be like, that guy had soft hands. He must work at air conditioned office on a keyboard, and like, so those were like definitions of success because I idolized my dad, and now I'm in an air conditioned home on a keyboard,
Yeah.
I've had to, deprogram myself on different definitions of whatever success was taught to me growing up. So, but yeah, I mean, I think and even if you don't have a healthy marriage, that doesn't mean you're not successful, because some marriages are hard and life is hard and we all have challenges. So like, I don't want to pin success on that, but like, there's no question to me that like, that is my greatest. Yep. And I'm like, I love my wife. I love my kids. They love me. We have a great relationship. And that it's like, I've won. No matter what happens, I've won. So, and I know not everybody has that. There's plenty of people that are single, there's plenty of people that are wanting that. And that's from like, gosh, like, the big house, the money in the bank, the whatever it is, like the family, like that's it. And so, it's been huge. And of course, my relationship with my higher power, maybe that supersedes everything. And I've continued to try to improve that over the years, and I have. So I don't know. Yeah, I think it's a more complex answer and probably a longer podcast than you think.
I want to actually ask a question about God here in just a minute, but I want to, I think for me, I've had a similar journey with defining success, just growing up thinking of it one way, and then maybe even accomplishing. I sold business at 25. I was worth all this money, and I thought, wow, this is great. I thought I was successful, and it didn't feel complete, if you will. And I would say I'm still on this journey of like, I think success is highly personal. But I guess my question is, do you ever find that fear is still a core motivator for you, even though maybe you've created this success? Because for me, in the back of my head, and maybe I'll just walk you through like what I would call like a catastrophizing thought, if you will, right? Like, hey, if this happens and I lose all my money and I lose this and I'm not employable and I lose my home, I could not be happy with my family, right? Like that's the thought process I go through. Like if we had to go and move here, I would feel like a total failure. If all of a sudden my kids, couldn't play this sport or couldn't do this or couldn't do that, or we didn't have trips, or, like I start thinking through sometimes the things that money enables my family to experience. And then I have fear that creeps in. And I'm just curious, do you struggle with anything like that? And how have you gone through your journey of overcoming that?
Yeah, great question. Again, this is a whole separate podcast for
It
me.
is. It's a lot. It's a lot.
Totally separate. But yeah, I mean, fear destroys.
Yeah.
That's how I see it. Fear does not motivate. Fear cripples. Like I feel like I've been moving for, I've had a ton of fear, and I think we all do. But like,
Yeah.
just recently, this last week and a half, I've come to realize like fear has held me back from what I'm really capable of achieving and capable of doing. And so I've seen it to where like, it's almost like I have one leg, and I'm trying to run a race or trying to do anything. And that one leg is fear. The other leg is fear that's just holding me. It's like, it's just right there. Like, oh, I'm not capable of doing that, or I can't accomplish this, or I'm weak in this area, or I don't have enough, or the worry of, well, what if that, what if this? It is a destructive power is how I see it. And so I have been trying to rid myself as fast as I can from fear, and it's been little by little, but I've made so much progress.
How do you do that? How do you get rid of fear in your life?
It's been a process. I wake up every morning at 4:30, and this isn't like a secret of to success. You do this, and do this, but I do think there is one definitive answer, and to me, it's going to your higher power, and for me, that's Jesus Christ. 4:30 every morning, I try to get up, and I go and meditate and look at what the day is supposed to be, and what does He want me to look at? What does He want me to see? What does He want me to do? And what are things that I need to heal from? And, can you show me? Can you open that up? And He has. And there's things that I haven't wanted to see. And that's hard. And that's where I'm like, do I really want to see this? Do I really want to see why I'm this way? Or what is really blocking me from achieving what I want to achieve? But I believe in, being able to manifest things. I believe, from a Christian perspective, ask and ye shall receive, knock and it shall be open, seek and ye shall find. I think those are promises. And if you have good motives, like those things are true and they will happen. And I find communication, and that's, I've been guided to see my weaknesses, and I have been working hard to make those strengths. And fear is a weakness. And that's, I don't want any part of it. And it's not a motivator ever. Like if it is place.
I totally agree with you. It's crippling. It really diminishes the light that we're capable of carrying, the light we're capable of holding. You talk about asking, you shall receive. I feel like my relationship with God has changed a ton over my entrepreneurship journey. I remember so many prayers when we didn't have enough money in the bank account to pay an employee that I was just like, God, give me money. God, give me money. God, help me succeed. God, help me here. God, help me here.
Yeah.
And, when you don't need those things, right, then I start asking myself, like, what's my connection to God, right? It was no longer like needing God for survival of my business. It was now needing God to make the best version of that He had paid, right? And so I'm curious, I would love to hear, and I know we don't have a ton of time, and this probably could be a whole nother podcast, like, maybe 6 other topics that we've talked about today. But what's changed for you in that connection with God, or has it changed? What's the evolution been like? And just here's your thought.
I didn't know I could talk to Him, and I didn't know He'd answer me.
Yeah.
That's the bottom line. Like I've tried to say my morning prayers. I've tried to say my night prayers. And it as if it's like a checklist, kind of like Pharisaical. Like, I do this and I'm holy. I do this and I'm following God. But in reality, and my prayers are conversations like what we're having. Like, this is what we're capable of having. Everything that's ever been written about my God is men having conversations back and forth, but I never saw it that way, never thought it was possible. And also getting upset, having real emotions,
Yeah.
and I've had those, and I've gotten upset. I've gotten really upset and really challenged and been like, why is this the way it is? Like,
Mm.
this was completely unfair, or this is horrific. Why did this happen to this person? Or why is this happening to me? And not in even a nice tone that I'm sharing with you, like a little more direct, but in a private setting, like, and then stopping and listening. And it's just been, that's made all the difference. Like, and listening and hearing and whatever comes to mind, believing it and going forward with it, not then doubting it or second guessing. Like, am I really hearing him? Is that really what he's saying? Like, and the more I've practiced that,
Mm.
life has changed for me. So I feel like I feel born again as of just a few years ago, feeling like I was just beginning to learn how to pray, and still am. But
Yeah.
it is night and day from where I was, and even where I thought I was, or where I was, like, or thought what was possible. But yeah,
I really like that.
the direction that I've been getting is real, and it's been, and I'm not a different person. I'm not like, oh, well,
Yeah.
I am so kind and so benevolent and so humble, like,
Yeah.
I'm kind of the same guy that I've always been, with the same weaknesses, but that's where I'm even more shocked,
Yeah.
because
Your
I always
connection is,
thought I was much worse, and that I didn't have that ability, or wasn't worthy of that ability to have that kind
yeah.
of revelation guidance in my life, and it's just not true.
Yeah. No, I agree with you. I think every majority of religions teach about that personal connection to deity, right? And I think the journey in life is just figuring out how to reconnect with the deity. And I agree with you too. It's, in growing up culturally, it was, you read your scriptures, you say your prayers, you do certain acts, and you are therefore worthy of the blessing from, a higher power, rather than like focusing on, I think what you're talking about is like this connection between you, this spiritual soul-based connection between you and this deity that's naturally connected. So I really like that. And I think I found the same thing for myself to be true. Yeah. We should talk more about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Happy to. Yeah. I'm happy to chat with anybody on that. But yeah, to me, like, I know I could get answers and talk to him right now, like we're talking. And
Mm.
I feel it. I just know I can get direction. So it's not this is the time to pray, or this is the time. It's a constant communication. It's a
Yeah.
it's a constant prayer. And again, that's that in all of Christianity, it's recommended, like, pray always. And it's
Yeah.
not on my knees, closing my eyes in a conclave or chapel or whatever, like,
Or even a
it,
format. Yeah.
yeah, there's no format to it. It's just,
Yeah.
he's here and he's guiding me. And my confidence is sky high because he's guiding me.
Because you feel, yeah, confident in your path. No, I think it's interesting because we, as humans, we like to, put things in a box. We like it black and white. And so I feel like, prayer, connection to deity, just all these things, we've tried to make it formulaic, right? Well, you do this action, then this action, then this action, and it always equals this action, except for when it doesn't. But we're not going to talk about that, So it's like, I think a lot of religion culturally has created these boxes that maybe don't actually connect us to God, but they're actions that we expect. So I think I really, really resonate with what you're saying. I really do. Thanks, Johnny. I appreciate your time today, man. Is there anything else on your mind from kind of this discussion you want to close out with?
No, anything on your mind? Anything you, yeah, I mean, you had a bunch of good questions. I wanted to repeat all that back to you too. Like,
Yeah.
can you create $1 billion business without just dropping everything and dropping your family, dropping your God, dropping, like, do you have to outwork and outcompete everybody? Like, yeah, that's where I'm like, I know you're successful. I know you've done amazing things from a young age. You're still doing amazing
Yeah.
things, right? And yeah,
Yeah, I don't have the answer. I know I've been a part of several situations where founder of the business is unrelentless and maniacal and all consumed. And in some ways, that's why they're successful. And you see it often that you start saying, I'm kind of you, Johnny. I'm a little bit more on the sales and marketing side. I'm not a coder. I'm a relationships guy, and that's what's made me successful in my career. So it's just, yeah, it's interesting to observe. My favorite pastime is to read biographies, right? It's one of my favorite hobbies. So I have read, so many biographies of people, and I mean, from religious leaders to, political leaders to business leaders, and the ones that have made the most impact are just freaking fanatics, and so then you start to say, like, are you able to change without being a little bit extreme? Are you able to create something great without being extreme? And that's where, like, I think you can. Obviously, I'm pursuing balance in my life. Obviously, that's what I'm doing. All the people I bring on here, I feel like are balanced and are good examples of that. But yeah, it's a question I ask myself often. I don't have the answer, so I appreciate
Yeah.
your thoughts.
As you're talking to, I'm thinking, like, it is a formula. I think
Yeah,
it's a formula to achieve success is, yeah, have nothing but money as your focus. And
yeah,
again, I said I believe in manifesting. Like, if you want
yeah.
money and that is your goal, I think you'll get
That's
it.
all you want. Yeah,
But it
and you're
has.
willing to sacrifice all this other stuff for
That's
it.
right. Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
Elon Musk. I mean, that guy. He's one of those that we all worship, and he's slept in the office. And we're like, he sleeps in the office. He goes nonstop, and
yeah,
people use that as like bragging about it, right?
yeah,
And
yeah, yeah, yeah.
he is the richest man in the world, and so it works.
Yeah,
It
if that's your goal.
Yeah, if that's your goal. But
Yeah,
to me, it's like,
yeah, yeah,
what do
yeah,
you want?
yeah,
To me, the harder
yeah,
question is, what do you really want? And then if you can, to me, verbalize that to the universe, to your God, whatever it is, like, you say, this is what I want. This is what I want to achieve. And then you go and work for it. I think you'll get it.
yeah. Well, and I think the problem that at least I faced was not knowing what I really wanted. So then getting stuck with whatever maybe your community, your culture, your friends, your circle tells you to want, right? And then if you're not like deliberate enough, you end up just pursuing what somebody else wants, you know? And
Okay.
and, and that's when I think it's unhappy.
So yeah, maybe cut the middle part of this conversation and end this, because this is,
Yeah,
to me,
yeah,
some of the good stuff here. But yeah,
yeah,
this is where, like, all the questions you asked early on, like, did you always just want to be an entrepreneur? How'd you start in Trada? Like, and I'm like, no. But to me, that was it. I was more aimless. I didn't know what
yeah,
I
yeah,
had
yeah,
no
yeah.
idea. And I don't think that's bad, but I just didn't know. And so I joined a group of co-founders, and they knew. They
They know what
had
they wanted.
they knew what they wanted, and so they set a culture and a tone that eventually I didn't want.
Yeah,
And that's where
yeah,
it's like, yeah, and it's not worth it to me. What they
yeah,
want, I'll get money, but it's not worth it. And
yeah,
I'll have less money if I leave,
yeah,
but
yeah,
but
yeah, yeah,
that's okay, because money's not my goal. Like,
yeah,
I mean, I told you that, I could just be happy with my family, and then you were like, "What about your basketball court?" I'm like, yeah. I mean, like, I've been happy with money,
yeah,
uh,
yeah, yeah,
but yeah, like, it really does come down to, what do you want, and maybe that's the harder life question that takes you years to figure it out. And if you can figure it out at an earlier age, good on you. But
I
if
have not
it's
figured it out. I
26
have not. Yeah.
and you're still trying to figure that out, that's okay too.
Yeah, yeah, no, it's a journey, man. It's a journey. I think that's like the impetus of the podcast was for me just getting money and realizing like, oh, this isn't all it's cracked up to be, like realizing that my dream of selling a business, or at least what I thought was my dream, was probably somebody else's dream that I was living, right? And so now it's about, well, what is that success to me, and making sure I have that defined rather than letting it be a comparative function or something.
Yeah,
So,
yeah,
anyways,
great thoughts.
no, dude, you're amazing. I admire you incredibly. Thank you for taking some time. It sounds like I really want to talk more. I'm in Tampa these days.
Yeah, yeah,
So
that's where my
you're,
company funnel is, and it's an
oh, they're in
amazing.
Tampa.
Yeah, they're headquartered in Odessa.
Super close, dude.
And
Okay.
and my CEO is Tyler Christiansen. He was one of my sales reps at Entrada, and now he's the CEO of this great company, and he's an amazing CEO. So many amazing leadership principles I've learned from him too. But yeah, I
Yeah.
love going out there, spending time with him. And so when I come out, I'll for sure hit you
Yeah.
up.
Yeah. Well, and I go to Utah. My firm that I'm a part of they're based in Provo. So
Okay.
I'm in Utah probably once a month,
Okay.
twice a month.
Great.
So yeah,
Yeah.
we'll connect. Let's do it. That's awesome. Thanks, Johnny.